Welcome to the Antiquarium of Sinister Happenings.
If you are uncomfortable with the occult or exploring other realms, I encourage you to stop listening to this immediately.
Find it on Bloody FM and wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, and welcome to Scare You to Sleep. I'm your host, Shelby Novak, and I'm here to read you a bedtime story. Before I begin, my apologies for the late episode. Thank you for your patience and understanding. This evening, I have for you a story by James Boden, who has had quite a few excellent stories on the show, like Toby, the Lighthouse Keepers, which was one of my favorites, very weird, and the two-parter Nani's Attic. James also has a book available on Amazon called Whispers in the Dark, 12 Chilling Tales, of which I have a copy, and it's excellent. I highly recommend picking up one for yourself. This week, James has for us Into the Black. A low buzzing noise woke Trisha that morning. She groaned and mentally reminded herself to change the alarm system from default to something less dissonant. She'd probably forget to do it again, only to remember how much she hated her stupid alarm tone the next day cycle. And the one after that. Another fine day in the depths of space, she mumbled, as she snatched a t-shirt out of midair, followed by a pair of jeans in lieu of her itchy uniform. Clearly, the gravity was acting up again. Not for the first time during this mission, Trisha Hummel was regretting her dream of becoming an astronaut. She had been wholly prepared back on Earth with the customary years of training. But out here, alone, not even her daily mission logs were enough to keep boredom at bay for long. That day, like many others, proceeded with the usual humdrum of any menial office job. It probably sounded much more glamorous to the outside world, but after 18 months alone, the notion of working out in space, it had lost most of its splendor. Breakfast, vitamins, gravity recalibration, atmospheric scans, then hours upon hours of sitting and staring into the black. The most exciting thing she'd seen so far was during ion storms, when all the equipment went haywire, or when the space station drifted off course and into an asteroid belt. That had been a fun day. No, most of her days were spent sitting alone and staring into that endless black while she searched deep space for any sign of alien life. So far, it seemed like they really were alone in the universe. In a weird way, Trisha really couldn't decide if that was a blessing or a curse. Trisha jolted and nearly dropped her coffee all over the central hub. Just scaring myself now, she muttered with a slightly hysterical giggle. The old bird loves to creak and groan. The tinny but distinct knocking outside the outer hole was unsettling, to say the least. Trisha tried to ignore it and drink her coffee. If it wasn't space debris hitting the outer hull, it could easily be the space station heating up or cooling down. Space was weird and unpredictable in that way. But no one could be knocking. That much she knew for certain. After all, nothing could actually survive in the total vacuum of space.
Okay, what the fuck is that?
She shouted as she jolted out of her seat. This time, she did knock her coffee over. The coffee, perhaps rejoicing the gravity in the station being thoroughly recalibrated that morning, fell in a near-perfect arc before it rolled harmlessly across the floor without spilling a single drop. Though she was deeply relieved for the no open containers protocol that was in place, it didn't exactly take away from her disquiet at the weird knocking that she kept hearing.
Hal?
She called, for once not giggling in amusement at the nickname she'd given the onboard computer. She was too freaked out for that right now. A series of chiming beeps sounded above her, certifying that the AI was listening, and Trisha said,
"Scan outer hull for anomalies."
No anomalies detected.
The AI responded in a cool, feminine voice, albeit paired with a not at all unsettling amount of static and skipping like an antique CD. At the same moment, something knocked against the hull again, making Trisha jump and yelp. The sound was making Trisha feel queasy with fear, and she didn't like the notion that she was scared. She had been picked for this mission for a reason. She wasn't supposed to get scared. Plus, the station making weird noises wasn't exactly new. She could still remember all those odd creaks and groans she'd heard when she'd come out of cryo all those months ago. For a time, she'd been utterly convinced that the damn place was haunted. Wisps of air would rush through the halls when the internal atmosphere was routinely cycled, sounding to Trisha like a ghost. The odd thunks and rattles of the heating and cooling system scared the daylights out of her every time they turned on. On the whole, she quickly learned that space was quite literally terrifying. Trisha broke out the little piece of black tourmaline her wife had given her just before takeoff, though she wasn't sure if it would really do anything against space ghosts. When Trisha had sent her first few messages home, she'd asked Mia about it. And a month later, when she'd finally gotten a response, Mia had laughed for a solid minute before she'd said, "Maybe Moonstone would repel space ghosts better, Trish."
"Scan again,"
Trisha commanded the computer, and the AI beeped to indicate it had heard her.
No anomalies detected.
It repeated, though this time there was no responding knock, which she supposed was a good thing until... Trisha did not bother asking the AI to scan again, as it clearly could not detect whatever was making that noise. Instead, Trisha got up from her chair, finally retrieved her coffee off the floor, and headed away from the central hub, determined to get to the bottom of this. The thing about the knocking, Trisha finally decided, was that it was too even and too measured to be some kind of space junk. It was a very technical term, space junk. It covered basically anything outside, and it also really irritated her commanding officers when she used it. The knowledge that it probably wasn't some kind of debris wasn't exactly reassuring, though. If it wasn't rocks, what else could it be? The next thing Trisha ruled out was the heating and cooling systems. Their particular brand of sounds she was all too familiar with, and after being utterly freaked out by it for the first few months, she'd at last gotten used to them. After that determination, Trisha reluctantly descended to the very bottom of the space station, where the engines were located. It was creepy down there, and Trisha wasn't embarrassed to say so. Not even a fully licensed RCAF pilot and astronaut. The engines were fully automated, more computer than mechanical, and were connected directly to Earth via some sort of auto relay, unless physical damage was done to them or there was some sort of physical malfunction. She didn't need to touch them at all. The automation admittedly unnerved Trisha a little bit. It made her think of the references to the Titanic being unsinkable. But so far, she'd managed to not have any major issues with them. So, maybe it wasn't as pointed a reference as she'd first assumed. As a result, Trisha had only been this far down once or twice. Most of the stuff she dealt with on a daily basis was on the first few floors, leaving the engine room feeling distinctly derelict, like an old house that had been abandoned for years. Of course, nothing was actually broken down there, but Trisha still found it creepy. Every step Trisha took seemed to creak, and it was so silent that she could hear her heart beating rapidly in her ears, and the whoosh of her panicked breaths jumping out of her lungs. And yet, when Trisha reached the engine room and ran a diagnostic, nothing seemed to be wrong. So the knocking couldn't have been caused by any kind of engine malfunction. What the hell was going on? Trisha raced back to the upper decks, and she felt a shiver rush up her spine when she heard the knocking again. Like before, it was the even, measured knocks, like one might hear when someone wanted to come in. It made Trisha feel sick, and she very nearly screamed out loud in frustration. Nothing could be out there. It wasn't possible. So then why does my brain feel like something is out there? Trisha wondered while she shook her head hard, determined to banish the thought. She wasn't some airy-fairy fantasist. She knew better than that. There had to be a logical reason that this was happening.
Stop it!
Trisha screeched before she could think better of it, and gasped as she clasped a hand to her mouth, eyes wide and heart racing. This shouldn't be getting to her so much. Realizing that she was in desperate need of a mental break, Trisha abandoned her daily tasks in favor of returning to her quarters to try and calm down. She wouldn't be able to think clearly if she was panicking, and a simple explanation in her mission log would probably be good enough for ground control. After all, it wasn't like they'd be able to fire her. Trisha moved into the room. It was lit with a warm, familiar glow of sunlight. Of course, it wasn't real sunlight, but it was as close as she could get out here, in the black. There was a panel on the side table which was firmly bolted to the floor of the room. It was made of glass and bore several large round dots, like buttons on a touchscreen game. Trisha slid her finger across the screen in a precise zigzag. The screen glowed green for a moment, confirming that it had unlocked. Then, Trisha pressed a few particular buttons on the screen before she laid down upon her bed. Around her bed seemed to fade, and a beautiful woodland took its place. A soft hissing of fragrance being released made the forest smell real, and a gust of wind from one of the vents made it feel almost like a cool summer breeze. When Trisha looked around, it was hard to believe she was still on a space station. She could see trees all around her, meadows of wildflowers, and animals meandering through the verdant greenery. The hologram was so real. Though it was designed to help keep the astronauts in deep space from developing some variation of cabin fever, in reality, all it really did was make Trisha's heart ache for home. It certainly didn't help to keep a level head, knowing that any panicked call she made to ground wouldn't get there for a month, if she was lucky. In the old days, it would have taken years for a message to reach Earth from her present location, and Ground always tried to frame it like she was lucky that the messages would only take a month to arrive. Clearly, Ground had no clue how long a month felt when you were in the middle of a crisis. Trisha sighed as she laid back on her pillow. It still felt like her pillow, even though it looked like a bed of flowers. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply, inhaling the floral aroma that smelled a little too chemical to be real. But it was as close as she was going to get until her time at the space station was over. 2 years from now. Trisha cursed softly, and she felt unwilling tears sting her eyes. Even within the confines of the hologram, she could still hear it. She curled up in her illusion and brought her arms up over her head. The knocking persisted, and she called to the AI to raise the volume on her hologram, turning the gentle twittering of birds and the quiet breeze into loud shrieks and howling winds. But still, it would not fully drown out the sound of whatever it was outside, knocking to come in. For days, it persisted. Trisha no longer knew if she slept at all, even with the sleep aids she had on hand. Her head felt fuzzy, and there was tension around her eyes, like someone had jabbed a fork into her skin and twisted the muscles like bits of spaghetti. Trisha had stopped looking into the source of the noise, for the simple reason that she wasn't certain that she'd like what she found. What if there was something out there? What would it mean for science if there were creatures bigger than a microorganism that could survive in space like that? The sleep deprivation, beyond making Trisha feel sick and headachy, was severely screwing with her perception of things. Every creak and groan of the station now sounded like the thing trying to get inside, and Trisha's panicked searches, as always, turned up nothing. It couldn't go on, it shouldn't go on, and yet it did. Trisha circled the station, crying openly as she tried desperately to find the source of the damn knocking. She needed to find the thing, she just had to. It was the only way to make it all stop.
I gotta find it. I have to find it.
She cried out on the 5th day of no sleep.
AI, scan for anomalous life forms.
One human life form detected. Did Captain Trisha R.
But
Hummel.
that's me!
Trisha cried with a gasp.
What other life forms are out there?
No other life forms detected.
No, that's wrong. There has to be something out there. There! You hear it? AI, do you hear it?
My auditory and ocular senses detect no damage or anomalies.
No. It's out there, it is. I'm gonna find it this time. It's not getting away.
Without another word to the AI, Trisha raced towards the airlock. She was going to find it. She knew it. Excitedly, Trisha switched off the safeguards and hit the release. With a shriek, Trisha was sucked out of the station. and she flew into the depths of space, mouth open, in a silent scream. In the moments before her inevitable demise, she was granted one last glance at the station and the jammed solar panel. She watched as it knocked 3 times against the hull of the ship. One last time. Thanks for listening. Thank you again to my author this week, James Boden, as always. And please go check out Whispers in the Dark, 12 Chilling Tales on Amazon. I will have the link in the show notes. If you'd like to follow the show on social media for things such as updates on whether the show will be late or not, you can follow at scareyoutosleep on Twitter, Instagram, and there is a Facebook group. Just search it up, answer the questions, and we will let you in. There's also Scare You to Eat on Facebook, which is the food group, which is so much fun. Thank you to, I got a lot of new followers in there the other day, and that was fantastic. Also, if you'd like an ad-free experience of Scare You to Sleep, because it's a little easier to sleep, do the sleep part of the show, then go to patreon.com/scareyoutosleep, and for as little as $1 a month, you can get ad-free episodes, and for $3 and up, you can get bonus episodes. And if you'd like a story considered to be on the show, that's not the proper way to say that. If you'd like to have a story considered for the show, such as a fictional story like the one you just heard, please send it to scareyoutosleep@gmail.com, and it will go into a file, and I will read it, and I will let you know whether or not I'm going to produce it for Scare You to Sleep. So, scareyoutosleep@gmail.com. Oh, I did receive one question from, I believe your name was Kayla. I'm so sorry if I got it wrong. I get a lot of DMs, but asking about me being back on a certain show. I don't want to name the show because I don't want to put them on the spot, but being back on a certain other fictional show similar to mine that I was a guest on a while back, and asked about me being back on there. Honestly, just send, if you ever have a feeling like that, which I 5,000% appreciate, by the way. That was so kind of you to ask. And if you'd like me back on a different show, I think the best way would just be to email the show directly and just say, hey, can you have Shelby back on the show? I don't know. I guess something like that. But I wanted to address that. And so that was nice of you to ask. I wanted to say that on the show in case anyone else had that question. I've also been getting a few more voicemails and texts to the show's number. The phone number is in the show notes as well, by the way, so you can text or call. And I'd love to do another voicemail. I don't quite have enough for a new voicemail episode, but I've been getting some more, and some of them are they're creepy. You're doing a good job being creepy. So yeah, if you'd like to ask me a question, if you'd like to try to scare me, if you'd what else did we cover last time? There were a lot of amazing compliments that I compiled at the end of the show. I mean, I'll always take a compliment. I am not above accepting compliments. Flattery will get you everywhere with me. Just to be an open book. So yeah, leave a voicemail, text. You can text that number as well. For my international listeners, I don't know why, but Google Voice for some reason doesn't support some countries. I got a very nice text from someone in Australia. If that was you, it made my day, but it wouldn't, for instance, I got the text, it wouldn't let me respond. It was like, Australia is not supported, which feels rude. It's Google. I mean, I don't really understand it. I don't know. But if you are international and for some reason the Google Voice number doesn't work, I think it does for some, like I said, the Australian person was able to text me. I just couldn't text back. So, and which is fine because I'm going to be reading it on the show anyway. I just noticed that little thing, but you can use the contact submission form on my website if you'd like to stay anonymous and ask questions or leave your comments there. Or if you don't mind me knowing who you are, I can still keep you anonymous, but you can email me an audio file if you'd like your voice on the show. So that's my little workaround, since Google is, I don't know what they're doing over there. So enough housekeeping. Let's see, for those of you who are new to the show, this part of the show is where I kind of ramble and help you ease to sleep in a less scary manner. But if you'd like to skip it, then go ahead and turn it off. And I don't mind one bit. I totally understand. Curate your own experience. That's what you're doing. And that's completely fine with me. So this week, the reason the episode was late is fully 100% human error. I did a hugely rookie move, was almost done editing the episode, the story itself, and I hadn't saved the entire time, not even just for a long time, the entire time. I don't know. I do know how it happened. Anyway, hadn't saved, accidentally closed out that window, lost all of my progress, slammed my knee into my desk, and thought, hey, that's a sign from the universe. I think we need to stop here. And I definitely needed a few days off because, for those who have been following my personal journey, I'm going to be moving in the next couple weeks. And I did want to mention that on the show because in case there are any interruptions when it comes to content. But last week I was looking at a new place and I'm very excited. I'm very excited. It's very cute. Of course, I'm not going to tell you more than that because of internet safety, but just know I'm very happy and I will be moving in a few weeks. And if there are any interruptions, that's why. The reason for last week, my head was just, there's a lot of things to do when you move. You got to schedule for utilities to be turned on. I had done like an 8-hour drive to see this place in one day, and it was a lot. My brain was kind of all over the place. There was also a big weird issue. Again, I'm not going to get into it because I'd have to reveal some details that would be stupid of me to reveal in public, especially with the safety issues I have had lately. But I will say my head was in the clouds for good reasons and for stressful reasons last week. And so that was what happened. And I have not taken a break in a long time. And I've been very stressed about various things. And I just thought, hey, let's start over Monday. Let's do that. And thank you so much for giving me the grace for that. And there will still be another episode this week. But again, in the coming weeks, there may be a fan favorites. There may be a feed drop. There shouldn't be any full interruptions of the show, but we'll see. Getting Wi-Fi turned on, that's always a trip. So we shall see. I just wanted to give you that little warning as we go into this month of June. And speaking of the month of June, I will mention this again next week up top, or in a few days up top. I will be at Hellmouth Con in Torrance, and we are going to be having, it's basically a Buffy the Vampire Slayer convention at Sunnydale High School, or what was filmed as Sunnydale High School. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you're coming out, if you were already planning on coming, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be moderating some panels. I'm going to have a panel myself. Well, it won't just be me. It'll also be Frank and Chris from the Zoning Out podcast. And so I'm very, very excited. It's going to be such a fun weekend. Come out June 15th, Torrance, California. If you have a chance, look it up. It's Hellmouth Con. Look up tickets. I'll put a link in the description, in the show notes, along with all the other stuff I said I was going to put in the show notes. And yeah, come say hi. It should be a pretty chill weekend. It seems like it's going to be much more chill than Midsummer Scream. So if you maybe saw me at Midsummer Scream and I wasn't able to talk or something, it's because I had 500,000 things to do at Midsummer Scream. And this one seems like it's going to be a little more relaxed. So come say hello. I'm very, very excited. Starting a new life, the new convention, and I'm over the moon. So thank you so much. Thank you to all of you. You're the reason that's all happening. I'm not going to get all sappy again. I've done it 500 times before. Okay, I'm going to go. Thank you so much. Go get some sleep. Sweet dreams.